It looked like somebody was bent over and had their head in the window of the deer blind, and it either heard me or smelt me, and he pulled his head out of the tent and stood straight up, and that shocked me. They don't make people that big.
The way it moved, almost as if it was gliding across the beach. I've never seen anything move like that in my life. They were screaming at each other in gibberish. It sounded like a language, and they were chuntering away back and forwards, back and forwards, back and forwards. I know what a bear looks like, and there is no way on this planet that what I saw were bears.
What are you reporting?
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sir?
Zia!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh.
This is the best podcast in the whole world. I'm Lily, and you're watching Sasquatch Chronicles.
Last week, Conner had his own chilling encounter near Mount Whitney in California. He's still searching for answers about what really happened. If you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. And if you get a chance, check out sasquatchchronicles.com. You can become a member and get additional shows. Let's jump into it tonight. I want to welcome Sherrie to the show. Sherrie, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I want to talk about this encounter that happened in rural Georgia when you were young. I know there's one in Montana we're going to chat about. But prior to any of this happening to you, I mean, you were pretty young. What was kind of your thoughts on Bigfoot?
Nothing. I knew absolutely nothing. This happened when I was around 7 years old and in Resaca, Georgia. And it was on Daisy Street. And Resaca is an old Civil War town. So it's like if you live there, you'll know where Daisy Street is. But I was the youngest of 7 kids. And 5 of us were still living at home at the time. And I remember that it was either a September or August because it was really hot in the house. And the 3 of us girls, we shared a bedroom. And both of the windows were open. We had 2 beds in the room. My oldest sister was 15 at the time, so she had her own double bed. And then my other older sister, she was 10 at the time. And we shared a bigger twin bed together. So my sister's, Carol's bed was in a corner that couldn't see out either window. But the one bed that I was in, I could see directly across to a window. And then there was a window right behind my head. And it just brings up memories. But I wasn't in school yet. My parents worked, and so my papa, he lived with us. So when everybody else went off to school, it was just me and him. But I'm laying in bed, and all of a sudden I wake up, and I notice that my sister is not laying beside me. She had gotten up sometime in the night and went over to lay with the oldest sister. Didn't know why, so I'm just laying there with my eyes open, and I see a woman in the window straight across from me. Now the screen was open, so the screen was that black, dark gray color, but the window on top was, closed, and she was probably a foot from the top of the window. So from the bottom of the grass, where all the shrubbery and flowers were, it was about 5 feet up to the window, and another 2.5 feet up to where I could see her face. So she was at least 7 to 7.5 feet tall. But my story just seems different from others because she was beautiful. She had like golden rust hair, and how I know that is because there was a pool light on in the yard behind her, and so I could see the color coming up. And she had high cheekbones, and then she didn't have the normal, like the gorilla nose or pug nose. She had a thin nose, but then it flared at the bottom. And she had bigger lips, but they weren't big, but they were thinner big. I don't know how to describe that. And I couldn't see the rest of her body, but I knew it was a woman. I mean, I knew it was a female because she was just beautiful. Her eyes were more oval, and I could see that she had 2 different colors. I could see that, I don't know what color the center color was, but it was outline of white. And she was tapping on the window. Jesus. Thoughts. She was tapping on the window, telling me to come over. And she wasn't saying it, but I could hear, I knew what she was wanting because she kept waving me over. I was scared to death. And so I sat there, and she did it for quite a few minutes. And then she left the window, I blinked my eyes, and she was gone. Then she must have gone around to the window that was right behind my head, and she was tapping on it. And she tapped on it for a while, and then it went away, and I finally fell asleep. Something like this happens when you're a kid. You think you'd get up and go scream, but you don't. You just freeze. I just froze. I just lay there. I could not move a finger. Couldn't do anything. It was scary. So the next morning, we get up for breakfast, and everybody's gone to school except for me. I'm at home with my papa. And I was telling him about it. And so he thought, well, let's go outside. Let's look around the window. But I never said it was Bigfoot. I always said that it was a girl with golden hair. But her hairline came up on her face like you see in Sasquatch photos. But I just didn't know anything about Bigfoot. So I just said, girl with gold hair. So we went out there, and the window that she was standing outside across from me, it had destroyed all of my mother's plants. The shrubs were down to nothing. You could tell that somebody had been pacing or just smushed it all in. And then on the other side of the house, where the window was behind my head, nothing was there. It was grass. I don't remember, my papa's been gone for years now, but I don't remember seeing anything over there. But it was damaged so much that he did call the police, and the police did come out. And they looked around and just thought maybe it was just somebody messing with us, somebody just walking around the house, checking the house out, maybe rob us or something. And that's it. That's about it for that one.
I've said this many times before, but I've spoken to a lot of children off the air, and for obvious reasons, I don't bring them on the show. What's fascinating, though, is that nearly every one of them describes experiences like the one you're mentioning. They'll often use words like monkey man or hairy man, but when you start asking follow-up questions, about 90% of the time, they're actually describing a female. And the stories are very similar. The creature taps on the glass and kind of gestures for the child to come outside. I usually ask him, how do you know it wanted you to come outside? And they'll say, the thing raised its hand up and kind of curled its fingers in a motion like, come here. And when the child doesn't go outside, the creature starts making faces or funny faces, and the child copies it. And it turns into this strange back and forth mimicry of what the other one's doing. And it's interesting, too, the kids never mention a vocalization, like a threatening vocalization, like a growl. They do hear vocalizations, but what they're describing is like bird-like noises or soft, almost cooing sounds. Now, while this might sound innocent on the surface, my question is, what's the real intention behind it? What you saw in the window, I mean, from your description, it almost seems more human than animal.
Well, as a kid, I was thinking, I'd never seen an ape before, you know, maybe something on TV when it came on, but it looked more human, but you could tell that there was something animalish about it because the hair was on her face. It came up to her chin, on her forehead. It came down way too close to her brow line. She did have big, prominent brow to where her eyes were set back, and I couldn't see anything from just about her neck down because of the window screen. But yeah, but she was beautiful. It just looked more, I guess, monkeyish.
You know, you used the term "she was beautiful," and that really kind of stood out to me because I've heard several male witnesses use that same description when they encounter what they believe to be a younger female Sasquatch. It's kind of interesting, though, you know, when I've never heard anyone use that term when describing an older Sasquatch. People who encounter kind of older females describe them to be kind of, you know, built like a vending machine, for lack of a better comparison. I know you're young when this happened, but do you recall if anything unusual was going on around that property at the time?
No, you know, I grew up, my mom was from Appalachia, and she always was warning us about boogers in the woods, and then she'd always, you know, warn us about if a cat ever chased you, you know, to take off your clothes and drop them as you go, so that way they'll stop and smell each pile of clothing and you can get closer to home. But she would always say boogers and, but another thing, I was never, as a kid, besides that happening and being so fearful at that time, I was never afraid of the woods. You know, even before my teen years, our neighborhood had a bunch of kids, and we all met up in the woods at night, started a fire, and just talked. And so the woods weren't really scary for me. Never took a flashlight, but that was, I know that my papa, I know that he believed me. So.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he took you serious enough to go out there and take a look around. He noticed all the damage to the flowers and the bushes around your window. And, I mean, serious enough to call the cops, to have the cops come out there. It makes me wonder, really, what was going through his mind when he realized, it's 5 feet up to this window, whatever was standing here, you know, whatever my granddaughter saw, it had to have been 7.5 feet. It really makes you wonder what was going through his mind at the time.
Yeah, I wonder, but I never said that it was, I think they had the impression that it was just a girl, just a young woman, you know, messing around or something. And I remember the cops saying something to my papa about, I'm only a few hours away from the big, forgot the name of the psychiatric place in Georgia, but I was only a few hours away, and I thought they mentioned something about somebody leaving there. But I know what I saw that night. And then it was just brushed off. You know, it was just kind of forgotten about. I mean, I know what happened. Even at that age, that's just something that, it's just such a thing that just gets in your brain and you can't forget it. It's just on there forever.
It's almost harder to believe that some female from an insane asylum hours away and is 7.5 feet tall decided to come tap on your window in the middle of the night. And by the way, she's also hairy. I mean, that seems almost crazier than realizing that it could have been Sasquatch. I think it was Sasquatch. And I know that you don't know the answer to this, and I don't know, but what do you think the intention was?
Well, to draw me outside for sure, but I don't know what after that. I know that she wanted me to come outside. When she switched windows, tapping on the window to get me to come outside. And then she was using, and I saw her fingers. So, and they were furry, and they were long. And so when she was doing the motioning she was mainly motioning. I just thought of this just now. She was mainly motioning with her thumb and her 2 index fingers to come over. She wasn't using her whole hand waving me over. She was using those fingers to call me over. I don't know.
You know, from eyewitness testimony, usually Sasquatch is very cautious on people's property, especially when they're near the home. This type of behavior, though, I mean, it really shows me that this creature was very comfortable being there. And that's why I wonder what else was going on around that property. I wish your grandfather was still around. You know, I would ask him if there was anything else going on prior to this creature coming up to your window. I'm willing to bet his answer might surprise you. You know what I
mean? Yeah. And I think I mentioned it before, but, you know, New Echota is just miles away from where this incident was. And that was the Cherokee capital of the world. And they had, you know, they got their burial mounds, and it's a really unique area.
Yeah, you did live in a unique area. I believe that is where the Trail of Tears started. That's kind of the starting point, kind of a tragic history, but an important one to remember. I wanted to ask you, was that the only thing that happened on this property?
Yeah, that was it. Never saw her again.
Well, tell me about this incident in Montana. Kind of when did it happen? What were you doing, and what happened?
This one, I didn't see anything, but we do a lot of fishing. And in 2020, when everything was shut down because of COVID, my husband and I had these pontoon floats that we'd go fishing on. Each one had a fish monitor, each one had motors, and we put in, and we were fishing. There's a chain of Thompson Lakes in Marion, Montana. We were fishing there. We put in, and we both got halfway across the lake when my husband said that he forgot his tackle box. So he had to turn around, and you know, they're slow. So he had to turn around and go all the way back. So I continued to the spot that I wanted to go to below these cliffs. And so I'm fishing for a few minutes, and this scared me more probably than the incident that happened when I was a kid. My husband, I could see him, he reached the shore, I had reached my fishing spot, and it got quiet. You could not hear anything. It was just deadly silent, and I got this feeling of like you better run, you better get out of here. It was scary. So I turned around and started coming back, and as I got further and further away, I started hearing sounds. And by that time, I met my husband back in the middle of the lake, and he goes, "Aren't we going to fish over there?" And I'm like, the freakiest thing just happened to me. And he said, you're not going to understand this, but it was deadly silent. I couldn't hear anything. And that has never happened to me before. And I got that feeling of doom, like you better leave. And so we went on the other side of the lake to fish. But that one was really scary. I can't even express the feeling that you get from something like that. It's like, you know, your instincts just to run, like to get out of there.
Yeah, I've personally experienced the woods going quiet like that, where everything just shuts off, and it is unnerving. It's very, very unnerving. And when I did experience it, I did have that feeling of dread, of doom, and you know, everything in your body tells you to run. What made you think it was Sasquatch?
Well, because I'd heard, you know, watching your shows and listening to your podcast, that other people had said that they've had that same experience where it's just deadly quiet, and it was deadly quiet. It was, you could hear nothing. No birds. When just minutes earlier there were birds, you could hear the squirrels. You can even hear the deer in the woods, the feet running around. And then when I went over to that spot beneath the cliffs, that was the worst for me, and I just had to turn around and get out of there. I almost stopped fishing, but when I got further and further away from that spot, it was horrible.
A lot of eyewitnesses do report this, and like I was saying before, I've experienced it. What do you think causes that, for everything just to go dead silent? I mean, it's almost like being underwater. What's your theory on why that happens?
I don't know. They must have some sort of control over nature or over or pushing on their instincts. Pushing thoughts onto us. I can't describe it, but it was a gut reaction to get out of there.
Yeah, I've wondered about that for a long time because it is a really weird thing that happens, especially when the force just goes quiet, like someone flips a switch, and the feeling of dread doesn't help. I wanted to ask you, I know there was an incident with your niece around that property that you grew up on. What did she tell you that happened?
Well, she still lives in Northwest Georgia, and I went home. I usually try to go home once a year, and she had heard about my incident. So we were talking, and she goes, Mama was telling me that you had a Bigfoot incident. And I'm like, oh yeah, because I'm used to them driving me about it and giving me a hard time about it. She goes, well, I had something happen to me, and I guess she was with another cousin. And they were in the woods, I think gathering firewood. She was with her dad and an uncle. She said that as they were working, they heard this scream, this loud scream roar. And she said that she could feel it in her gut. And they all took off and got out of there. It was something that she said she'll remember for the rest of her life.
And I know from your email, this was kind of the same general area where your encounter took place. And I know it's not the easiest thing going through an encounter like that first one you went through, but I do appreciate you sharing it. And there's so many similarities, from the children I've spoke to adults like yourself to where this happened when they were young. It's kind of disturbing. I ask everyone on the show, what do you think Sasquatch is? What's your take?
I have no idea. I don't know if it's a different species, like a higher species that lives here, or I think about, I forgot the name of the ones that are in the Bible, the Nephilim.
Yeah, the Nephilim.
I wonder about that too, but I have no clue.
What makes you think about the Nephilim as kind of an option for what these things are?
Just because, from reading experts, it's just little things out of the Bible that they seem similar in the description. And I don't know. I know that there's something that's highly evolved in them.
I've looked into the theory that these creatures might be connected to the Nephilim as well. My advice is keep searching for answers. And I really appreciate you coming on the show to share what happened. What's always troubled me about these encounters is the behavior itself. Why did they want the kid to come outside? And in most cases, the creature, if they truly wanted the child or to harm the child, they could easily break the window and just take them. But why go through this weird process of gesturing, almost negotiating, trying to make the child choose to come out? There's nothing about this type of encounter that sits right with me. And I think it's important that these encounters come forward, and I want to thank you again for coming on. I really enjoyed chatting with you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me on the show.
Next up on the show, I want to welcome Conner. Conner, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I know that you're nervous. There's no reason to be nervous. This encounter happened very recently out there in California. Prior to this happening to you, what was kind of your take on the whole subject of Sasquatch?
I haven't really given it too much thought. I've kind of, throughout my life, been interested in paranormal things. I've never really had anything too substantial happen to me, but as far as Bigfoot goes, I had never really given it too much thought. It's kind of one of those things that a lot of people just disregard,
Well, I know that this happened to you, like a week ago. If you would, take your time. What were you doing and what happened?
I was on my way back from from Southern California. I've lived on the east side of the Sierra Nevada for my entire life, and a couple of years ago, rent got really expensive, so I built out this van, and I've been living in that on and off for the past couple of years. And I was driving this thing back from Southern California, and it was pretty late at night, so I wanted to split the drive up in the Alabama Hills area, which is right near Mount Whitney. And I've been there before a couple times. I haven't really explored too much in the area. I camped there when I was a kid, and it's this really magical place. Like the rock formations and everything is. I really like it out there. So I get out to Alabama Hills at around 12:30. I wasn't even too far, off the main road. I was just kind of trying to find a quick place to camp for the night and split up the drive, and I wasn't planning on being there for too long. So I get off the main road onto this dirt road section, and I passed this rock that on my maps it said this rock is called Nightmare Rock, and it has this big face kind of painted on it, and it's really creepy. So I avoided that area. I went to a place kind of east of there. The specific area is called Lone Ranger Canyon. And I found a nice level spot. I probably got to sleep around 1 in the morning. Nothing felt off at that point, but it felt like I was asleep for not really that long, and I was woken up to the sound of bird call, bird song, which I thought was really weird, even if it was the morning time. I didn't really expect to hear that many birds in that area, and I looked at my phone. I remember getting up, kind of looking at my phone, and it was 2:30 in the morning. But I was tired, so I kind of just tried to write it off. And right as I was laying back down, that sound kind of shifted to the sound of cricket noises, and it sounded like crickets were just surrounding my van. And right as I was kind of having that thought, I was leaning up in bed a little bit. I felt something on the side where my head lays in my bed in the van. I felt something lean up against the side of my van. And almost instantly after that, I heard this. It was like this wailing, shrieking kind of whistle, and it was really short. Started off really loud and then tapered off. And at that moment, a lot of things happened all at once. At that moment, my van started shaking violently. I remember hurling over because I felt this intense sense of dread come over me, and I just started sobbing immediately. I remember at first I heard the sound of my crying, and I didn't even recognize the sound of my own crying, and it was kind of a lot, and I felt my face curl up, and I just started losing it. And sort of after a second, I lost. It's hard to describe. I lost the sense of hearing, but at the same time, I could feel the pressure of sound on my ears and on my body, kind of like when you're at a concert and the music is really loud. You can feel the sound. I could feel this pressure of sound all around me, but I couldn't hear anything, and I couldn't move. And I really don't know how long it lasted for, but I remember I just wanted to do something. I knew I had to get out of there, and I wanted to. I love it. I don't know. Bears have tried to break into my van before, and usually what I do is I just knock on the walls of my van, and I kind of tell them to go away, but I wasn't able to do that. I just had to sort of sit there and take this overwhelming feeling of dread, and it was super disorienting because the shaking just would not stop. It was so violent and unnatural feeling, like nothing. I've had bears try to break into my van, and kind of just like a couple little rocks, nothing too gnarly, but this was just, I don't know how long it lasted, but eventually it just stopped, and when it stopped, it felt like I kind of came out of this weird trance. It was rather surreal. Like the feeling of dread was just so palatable, if that makes sense. Like it felt like it was surrounding me and pressing down onto me. And I felt fear in my life before, you know. I've done climbing and done things in the mountains, and whenever I feel fear from that, it feels like the fear comes from within. But this fear felt like it was kind of being imposed onto me, like something was making me feel this sense of dread, and it almost felt kind of violating, like something evil had taken control of my emotions. And sorry, sometimes I have to laugh through these things just to get through it, but yeah, eventually it stopped, and I kind of couldn't move for a little. Like, I knew I could move, but I was so scared to, see what was out there. I have these curtains in my van that kind of give me privacy, and in order to get to the driver's seat, I have to pull off the curtains and start the car. But eventually I mustered up the courage to get up. I had to put clothes on. It was really cold, like pretty cold. That was another reason I didn't want to get up, because I was so scared, and it was cold, and that's just the worst feeling when you're shaking from fear and shaking from the cold at the same time. But I got some clothes on, and I started the car, and I just remember thinking that I had to figure out what it was that was shaking my van, and I was trying to come up with some sort of reasonable explanation as to what happened, and I was like, I can't drive away from here without checking for tracks and potentially figuring out if it was a bear or maybe some people messing with me out there. But yeah, I got out of the car, and I remember grabbing, I have this really dull, long sort of shovel knife that I use to dig loopholes. That's what you gotta do when you live in a van. But yeah, I grabbed this thing, and I stepped outside to look for tracks, and I used my phone flashlight to kind of look around, and it was this dirt sort of road parking lot area, and it's not so easy to mark tracks there, but if they're that fresh, I would have been able to see something. I walked around the whole van and didn't see anything, which really freaked me out. And when I was outside of my van, I was shaking pretty aggressively, just out of fear and the cold, and it kind of felt like something was watching me. Something was there. And I got back into my van pretty quickly after I realized that there weren't any tracks. And I had to get out of there pretty quick, but one of the worst parts about it was I just wanted to drive as fast as I could out of this dirt road area, but I drive this van, and you kind of have to drive it slowly through these dirt roads, so I just had to mosey on out of there, and I really did feel like something was watching me the entire time. Got to town, not too far away, and I still felt really uneasy. And then I got onto the highway, and the fear started to leave me a little bit, and I basically just drove as far as I can to a rest stop where there were other people sleeping on the road. And I usually hate sleeping around people. I like to be in secluded areas, but I was so grateful to be around people in that moment. And I didn't think I was going to be able to sleep that night, but I just knocked out because I was so exhausted from that experience. Like, it was so traumatizing that I just fell asleep instantly and woke up the next morning. I remember thinking I wanted to check for like marks on my van, like claw marks. I have a couple claw marks on my van already from bears. I went out and looked pretty thoroughly. I mean, my van is just super dusty. I couldn't see anything. Like, I have solar panels on top of the van that maybe something could grab hold of, but definitely couldn't have been a bear grabbing hold of the solar panels, and I definitely would have seen claw marks and stuff like that. And yeah, it's kind of bothered me ever since that happened. It was only a couple days ago, but it's I've never really had an experience that's bothered me for so long. Like, I've never had a dream that had such a lasting impact. I've never gotten so scared from an animal trying to break into my van or anything like that, and it just feels like the amount of fear that I felt is just so disproportionate from anything that I've ever felt before. And right now I drove back home, and I'm hundreds of miles away from where it happened, but it feels different now. Like I feel like knowing that something is out there. It's kind of weird because I know it happened far away, but the event took place in my van. So even though I'm not in the same place, living in my van has been a little weird since then, because I'm in the same place where it happened, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Conner. It's like you're reminded of it every day because it happened right there in your home, in your van, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like, every time I get into bed, I think about like the shaking and what it felt like to just submit to that fear. In these places that I've been camping at for the entire time I've been living in my van, these places that I usually feel super safe at, I no longer feel safe in the woods. And that's just something I've sort of had to deal with since then, and I hope that ends up getting better soon.
Who could blame you for feeling that way? I mean, I would be upset by it, and hopefully time will help. Surprisingly enough, this is a very common behavior that is reported by eyewitnesses. In your email, you described an event where several of your friends were kind of messing with you and they shook your van.
Oh, yeah. So my friends decided to, we had just been hanging out and partying that night, and I went to sleep in my van in the parking lot. And they decided to kind of play a joke on me, which I did think was funny. But yeah, they all got on each side of my van and kind of started shaking it around. And it was probably 5, 6 of my homies on each side of my van, rocking it back and forth. And that was just, I've been using that to kind of compare what the shaking that I experienced the other night was like, because 5, 6 of my friends weren't able to even come close to what that felt like.
And I know this particular night, it must be kind of a blur for you, but how long do you think it might have shook your van for?
That part I really do have a hard time remembering, but I remember when I did start my car to leave, it was around 3. So, yeah, if the shaking, I heard the bird noises around 12:30. That's when I got up, kind of checked my phone, and tried to go back to sleep. So the whole experience, I can't see it lasting more than 10 minutes because I sat in bed for a long time, working up the courage to get out. I was just so scared of pulling back the curtains and like seeing something. Seeing something there.
I can only imagine how unnerving it must have been. You know, if it had happened to me, I mean, I'd be right there with you. I'm a big, strong guy with an ego, and it would have terrified me. When we were talking last night, I mentioned that I've heard about this kind of behavior before. But what really stands out about your encounter is kind of the sequence of sounds, like you're hearing bird calls and then it gradually shifts into crickets kind of surrounding your van, and all of this happened right before your van started shaking, and that intense pressure and that overwhelming sense of dread that you describe is unsettling. I was telling you about an account that happened on Vancouver Island in British Columbia of this guy, and he was camping in this camper, and in the middle of the night, his van just starts violently shaking. And he's a pretty big guy, and it actually threw him out of the bed, and it was still shaking his camper, and he didn't know what was going on. He had just woke up. He goes rushing out the door, and his fire from that night was still going. And he's looking around, describing how silent the forest is. And he had this feeling that he was being watched. Whatever just did that was standing in the darkness watching him, even though he didn't see it. Can you describe that same feeling?
Yeah, it really felt like this, like when I got out of my van, and then when I was leaving, there was that feeling of being watched. And then I remember when the van first started shaking, like I said, I felt something press up against the side, and I just remember feeling like so positive that there was something right next to my head, you know, there's just this sheet of metal and some wood separating me from this something like so evil and so, yeah, I don't even know how to, the more I try to describe it, the less I am able to.
I truly think it was one of these creatures that shook your van. Why they do it, I don't know. It's kind of a dick move, like wake up, because they never pushed a van or camper or vehicle over, but they shake it violently enough to terrify everyone within it, and then they just kind of walk off. It's weird. I mean, it's really weird. And it obviously wasn't a man or several men, because your buddies played that prank on you, and it was nothing like this. And I don't even see a bear doing this. I don't see a bear coming up and shaking your van. I mean, you know how, I mean, you live out there, Connor, you know, I mean, bears come around, they're pretty easy to scare off. You make a little bit of noise, and most black bear will quickly exit the area, exit away from you.
Yeah, especially the bears. I mean, we don't have grizzly bears here, so yeah, it's pretty easy to deal with them.
In a lot of encounters, eyewitnesses talk about that overwhelming fear that almost takes over you, and I've experienced it. I know you experienced it. Many other eyewitnesses experience it, and it's very hard to articulate that feeling. It's very hard to kind of explain when nothing's happening to you. Why do you feel that way? What do you make of that overwhelming sense of fear and dread that just overcame you?
Yeah, like in past situations, like you said, it's scary if a bear comes into your camp or tries to break in. You do get scared, but I've always been able to act in those situations. I mean, you really don't have a choice. You kind of have to do something about it. but I've never given in to something so quickly. You know, at first when I was trying to reason my way through that, I was thinking about the winds, other things like that. And I just shouldn't have gotten that scared. And yeah, it's weird. It's like a combination of fears. I was scared. I really was almost certain that I was going to die. It felt so inevitable that was just it. You know, I couldn't do anything about it. And like I was saying earlier, it almost felt like it was being pushed on to me, like something coming from the outside and influencing my emotions.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. Last night I was telling you that these creatures will mimic birds, they will mimic different animals, and I wanted to ask you, I mean, you were kind of hearing that all around the van. Do you think it was more than one?
You know, I don't know, but the more I think about it and the more I've kind of talked about it, you know, I really don't know what it was out there because I didn't see anything. But as I kind of explore these different possibilities, it does kind of feel as though potentially they were using that noise is a way to sort of like mask the sound of their approach. And I definitely do feel like I could have gotten the feeling that there were more than one. Yeah, I mean, it all happened so fast. It was all such an overwhelming experience. Trying to look back on it is a little bit difficult, like remembering the details. But I could definitely see it being more than one, especially the way that, you know, I first heard those birds, and that really weirded me out. You know, I've talked to some friends about it who've been in that area, and that's not anywhere where you would hear that many birds, even in the morning. There are birds out there, but it was like it was a cacophony of noise, you know, and it almost sort of switched with the cricket noises. It almost like overlaps, and it kind of did feel like they were coming from different directions. And yeah, that's when I heard that scream. I keep thinking about the sound of that scream, and I remember it coming from like the front end of my van, like the driver's end. I sleep in the back, and I do remember that noise coming from the front, and then it did feel like whatever was shaking my van was shaking from the sides. So yeah, I could totally see it being more than one.
And I know you're in a lot of these remote areas, and if it makes you feel any better, I think most of this sort of behavior is meant to terrify you. It's meant to make you go away. It's kind of, like I said earlier, it's kind of a dick move to shake your van and be like, wakey, wakey, and then they walk off. You know, if it really wanted to hurt you, I have no doubt it could have gotten inside that van and there would have been nothing you could have done about it. But you weren't really a big believer in Bigfoot, and I know that you, to this day, don't really know what happened that night, but what made you kind of look into Bigfoot as maybe that's what happened that night?
Well, I was heading back to work that day and just kind of trying to process what happened, so I went on Reddit. And my original intention was to post on some local subreddits to see if anybody knew any like lore or local legends, or maybe even could provide some logical explanation to what happened to me. I really was just like looking for answers. So I shared my experience on Reddit, and I put it on some local California mountains subreddits, and somebody there told me to repost it to the Bigfoot subreddit. So that's what I did. And I was pretty fascinated by what everybody there was saying. You know, the next day I could not sleep. Like there was no way I was going to sleep the next day. I just couldn't. I was too paranoid. So I was kind of on Reddit talking to these people, and at first I was really worried about talking about it to others because I was afraid that I was worried people would write it off or not believe me. But it was really nice sort of mistakenly or accidentally going on to this Bigfoot subreddit, something that I really had not taken seriously before, and I was genuinely surprised to see that these people were saying that almost every detail of my story was a very common experience that other people have when they say that they had a Bigfoot encounter. And then somebody on that subreddit recommended that I check out your show, and they were saying that it would help with sort of the fear that I was experiencing afterwards, and getting through the just sort of the flashbacks that you get after things like that happen. Kind of messes with you. And I was having a hard time with it, and they were saying that other people who share their experiences and listen to other experiences sort of find comfort in what happened, because at first I just didn't know what to make of it. I thought I was going crazy, didn't think anybody was going to believe me, but I remember in the moment thinking that nobody was going to believe what was happening to me, but I was so sure of what was happening, And yeah, I've listened to an episode of your podcast, and the experience that I was listening to really resonated with me, and yeah, still don't know what to make of it, but I really do find it pretty intriguing that so many people have had so many different experiences. And I mean, looking at how many people that you've talked to, like, I remember seeing the amount of episodes that you had, and I was like, statistically speaking, there's no way that all of these people are lying or hallucinating, I just think that there are too many common experiences for it to be totally written off. And yeah, I had no idea that I would get to this place where I am now. But here I am.
Yeah, well, shout out to the users on Reddit. Appreciate them sending you my way. Have you ever thought about going back to the location where this happened?
I did think about it, and I don't think I'll ever go back there at night. Even if I even kind of thought about, what if I camped there again with friends, and like thinking about bringing my friends into that area and exposing them to potentially having the same experience that I had. Is just not something, like, I don't want anybody to go through that. I used to, when I was younger, like much younger, I used to really want some paranormal experience to happen to me, and now that it's actually happened, I really take back what I said. Like, if I had known that it would be that traumatic, I would not have said such things.
I always say, be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. I ask everyone on the show, what do you think Sasquatch is? And I know this particular night you didn't see it. But just as kind of a thought exercise, and there's no wrong answer, what do you think Sasquatch is?
I always sort of thought that Bigfoot was like this primal being. I never really got the impression that, just from an outside perspective, I never really thought people thought it was like this paranormal, mysterious, enigmatic creature. But the feeling that I got from whatever was outside of my van just felt so intelligent, and it felt so serious, like it meant business. And yeah, just I keep really coming, like, I keep thinking about how intelligent it felt and how evil it felt, and that is just not something I ever thought that was associated with Bigfoot. And it was very fascinating having all these people on Reddit tell me that it can mimic noises, and it's also very fascinating to me how it lets people go. It just kind of tries to scare them away from that area, and it left enough of a lasting effect on me that I definitely won't be going out to that exact spot in the future, especially at night. But I really can't see myself going there in the day either.
Yeah, I would encourage you to go back. I mean, I wouldn't go back tomorrow. It's only been a week or so. But take the time to go back. I wouldn't go back at night either. I don't blame you. But maybe go back during the day. It does kind of have kind of a weird closure effect on you. But that would be my advice.
Yeah, I appreciate that advice, because I can't imagine at a certain point me wanting to go back there for a certain amount of closure, especially during the day. I think seeing that place during the day would really help make me feel as though this world is still a safe place, even though there are unexplainable things out there that could potentially be malintent, that there is still a world out there to explore.
I honestly think the chances of them attacking you are slim to none, even though you feel like you're about to die because of their behavior. But I think most of it is meant to scare you. And if you happen to come across another one again, which your chances are pretty slim, but if that does happen, and you're in a position where you're afraid, just leave. I really think that they'll leave you alone. But I really appreciate you coming on and sharing it. Thank you so much, Connor, for taking the time.
Yeah, I appreciate you reaching out. I'm definitely very interested in hearing some more of your episodes and other people's experiences, because this is, really not anything that I imagined myself getting into, and it has been helping a lot to talk and share with others what happened. And I really appreciate talking to you, somebody who sort of knows about these types of things. It's very interesting. I really do find this all very fascinating. It's been helping me a lot.
Well, good. Be safe, and thank you again.
Miniram ni Nerd.